Well, leading this half hour, the Electoral Commission in the Democratic Republic of Congo is expected to issue a statement later today, officially delaying the announcement of results from last weekend's long-awaited presidential election. Well, the Election Commission said less than half of the ballots have been received for counting. The announcement of preliminary results would be postponed to next week. The AU and the EU have urged the country to respect the outcome of the vote, whilst the Catholic Church has been criticised by the ruling party for announcing it already knew the results of the poll. It has been accused of inciting violence. To help us unpack this story, let's chat to Izak Khomo, a Channel Africa producer. He joins us now in studio. A very good evening to you, or afternoon to you, Mr. Khomo. We thank you very much for your time. In having a look at the political instability and the situation leading up to the DRC elections, let's just discuss those.
Well, what can I say? It's a long story. But as everybody knows, the elections took place last week. They were delayed from a week before then. But then the election was supposed to have taken place in 2016, and they've been delayed for a whole 2 years. And in that period of time, Kabila has been in power. But eventually the elections were held, and the results were supposed to be announced today. But then the Independent Electoral Commission says that half the votes have been received for verification, I suppose. And therefore they've actually postponed the announcement till next week, for a week.
You know, what essential compounding effects are these going to have, and essentially is this going to deter the credibility of the outcome of the votes?
I mean, so the delay would not actually sort of to have anything with the credibility, but although it actually sort of opens up, there may be opening up of possibilities of there be electoral fraud, but that's just speculation, yeah. But I think the best thing to do is to actually get very good results and let the elections be announced. But again, that thing there, people to expect results to be announced after a week, after casting of votes, it was a tall order. I'm talking about this because if you look at African countries, they normally take 2 weeks. And this was elections were done on ballot paper. And taking the size of the DRC, and there were 40 million voters. That's the electoral roll. It's 40 million, almost the population of South Africa. It was a tall order for this thing here, which is totally manual, to have been completed within a week. It was an impossibility. So this is the real situation, that the whole thing is not done.
Now, speaking of those votes and those over 40 million individuals that had voted, we understand that there are 2 provinces that unfortunately did not vote. Let's have a look at the situation surrounding that. Yeah.
There are 2 districts which never voted, or 2 provinces never voted. These are in the eastern DRC, and the reason for them not voting, I think it was 3, if I'm not mistaken. It was due to the Ebola outbreak, and then again to the breakdown of the security situation in those areas. Now, the security situation in those areas was very bad. It was dire. And in fact, there was a rebel group called the M23, where months away, they had actually said that they were going to come and make sure that the elections will not be held. Yeah? That's what the M23 said. And with that, they saw a spike up of attacks. And these were terrorist attacks, where they're not even attacking army bases, but they're attacking civilians. Yeah? So the security situation was bad. And then there was the Ebola situation. So I guess for the people on the ground, they may have been justified to actually postpone the elections or not. But the funny thing is this, that before the elections, the opposition parties, quite a number of them, were asking the Independent Electoral Commission to postpone the elections to next year. Yeah, there were calls for the postponement of the elections. And the Independent Electoral Commission continued with the elections. So you just do not know where the DRC people stand. There was a time when they called for postponement of the elections to next month, or even to this year, sorry, that was last year. And now they say that, no, these people are delaying the elections.
Now, despite the January 6th deadline, which of course now you had said that it's quite a tall order, we understand that the Election Commission chief had already said that the publications prematurely of the results could possibly stoke further tensions in the country. Do you agree with that statement?
Definitely. 100%. I mean, the Roman Catholic Church has been very responsible. And in fact, they're being mischievous to say that they know the results and they want to announce the results. Yeah. Now, if the results go counter to what the Roman Catholic Church says what is going to happen, yeah. I mean, according to the law, there's only one authority that is authorized to announce this election. That's the Independent Electoral Commission. I mean, doing so, coming to speculate on the results of the election and trying to appear to be an authority on that, it can actually sort of incite violence, and it's very dangerous. And I think, I don't know how the laws stand over there, but I mean to say that it's, in other places, it's reason enough to take whoever is responsible to court.
Now, speaking of interference, of course, political parties have, called on the Catholic Church, saying that they are interfering. Let's talk about, within this political climate, the other interferences that these elections have come to see. Not only that of the AU, but of course the outlying forces from the EU.
Well, that's true. In fact, the sad thing about the Congolese elections and the whole process towards the election is this, that the whole thing, the atmosphere has been driven by the media. It was media driven. And what came from the media, it was basically the mainstream media. It was basically very negative, and they were actually sort of demonizing the Independent Electoral Commission and the government of Mr. Kabila. It being corrupt and trying to manipulate the elections. Yeah? We could start off with this big talk of saying that the man is being staying there illegally, supposed to step down. Yeah? But unfortunately, is this that the constitution of the DRC clearly states that in a situation where there is no elected, where elections are not held and there's no elected president to take up the position of the president, the incumbent will continue acting in that position until elections are held and a new president is elected and is going to hand over to him. Now that is said black and white in the constitution of the DRC, and that constitution, it was not written by Joseph Kabila. It was written by all parties concerned. And again, you find that these elections, they've been delayed. They were supposed to be held in 2016. The Election Commission said they could not hold the elections. Yeah, they said that they had no money. But prior to that, the government had given them 200 million. And one thing about the Electoral Commission, they say it's independent. It's truly independent. After the 2011 elections, they reconstituted that independent Electoral Commission. And it was monopolized by the opposition with civil society. And the man in charge there was a Roman Catholic, I think he was a catechist or a priest, Maru. And when they came with the elections, they estimated the elections to be 1 billion. And the United Nations was on board when that was taking place to assist them to reform the election process and also to assist them in getting funds. After that, the United Nations said they were going to get donors to give out $700 million because there were a lot of things that to be done. That to have census, so which could actually do the new electoral roll, and the government was supposed to give out 300 million. The government gave the people 200 million. There was 1 million left. But then the EU came, they said they were going to assist, but then they fizzled out. The donors fizzled out. Now I would quote Alex Vines, he's head of Africa's sector of Chatham House. In an interview with Al Jazeera, he said that basically the government of DRC decided to go alone after they'd been disappointed by earlier promises by donor parties. But that's something people don't talk about. Yeah? But why is it they don't talk about that? But what happened to the 200 million? The opposition say this man wants to continue and to sabotage the elections, but they actually ate the money. But they don't talk about it. So basically, we have got to be very, very careful when you talk about the DRC. Everything's got to be contextualized. Yeah? The mainstream media has got its own agenda. Now we could talk about other interferences from the EU. If you look at, let's say, the candidate, Fayul, the main candidate. Now he was actually, they got him in Geneva. But why should they have to go to Geneva with external forces there? But before then, they were called by the European Union to Brussels. Everything was paid by Brussels, and the EU wanted them to come up with a single candidate. But why has the EU got to come and try to force candidates? Yeah? And after that, what do? They actually embargo the candidate from Kabila's party. There's an embargo against him. But why do you do that? The EU, the European countries, the USA, they're complaining about interference in their elections. But why are they trying to manipulate results and candidates in African elections? So these are things that basically we Africans have not talked about, yeah, and the mainstream media is quiet about them. But I think these things are supposed to be taken up.
Now, just speaking very briefly on mainstream media, let's talk about the censorship that is currently taking place on social media in the DRC. And essentially, where does the DRC stand? A missed deadline, a security breach, and of course, threats of an upsurge in violence, depending on what those outcomes are of the polls.
And that explains why the people are so scared that they've actually put a blank on the thing. Yeah. Truly speaking, that's what it's all about. The DRC, when you talk about media, the DRC media is the freest in Africa. In fact, it's unregulated. Yeah, the FM stations, the newspapers, they can just call people to demonstrate and to write. That is a known thing about the DRC. The media regulation is very poor. So I think they said that now the best thing to do is to actually sort of put the thing under wraps to control the situation. Is actually to, yeah, I'm just speculating, but basically the DRC with its media regulation is not that. You can insult anybody in the DRC. That's an unfortunate thing. You can call people to the streets and they go in the streets. Yeah, they demonstrate without even permission from authorities. But if you touch them, they say that no, you are actually sort of deterring and stopping democracy from taking place. That's anarchy, not democracy.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Izak Khomo, a Channel Africa producer, just unpacking with us the economic climate currently taking place in the DRC.